Hello and welcome to the video. Today we are going to focus on enlargement, but enlargement with a negative scale factor. So as we work through this video, I will be assuming that you are already confident with enlargement using a positive scale factor. Okay, so I'll work through the first example and hopefully you can pick up the similarities between enlargement with a positive scale factor, but also the differences. To start with, we find the center of enlargement, just as we would do with any enlargement question based on a set of axes. So we're going to find the coordinate -1, 2, -1, 2, which is there. It was already on this question. And we put a black dot for our center of enlargement. We are then going to take a ruler, take a straight line, and we are going to draw a line from the corner of the shape through the center of enlargement, and then we are going to continue the line on. So that is different to when enlarging by a positive scale factor, because usually you would start at the center of enlargement and draw your lines towards the shape and continue them on. But when we're dealing with a negative scale factor, we start at the shape and go towards the center of enlargement and then continue them on. So again, start at a corner, towards the center of enlargement, continue the line on. As I said in my tutorial on positive scale factors, these red lines are just a safety net to make sure we are doing our enlargements correctly. As you get more and more confident with the topic, you may not include these straight lines, but for me, I always include them because it really helps my understanding of the exam questions. From the corner towards the center of enlargement, and then I'm continuing on. From the corner towards the center of enlargement, and then I'm continuing on. So once we have applied all four straight lines, we've set up our question ready to answer it. So there was one subtle difference on the first slide. We start our lines at the shape and go towards the center of enlargement. That is the opposite from what we would do with a positive enlargement question. Okay. Now I'm going to focus on corner. So again, when I did a positive scale factor, I would have started from the center of enlargement and counted towards the corner. Then I would have went back to the center of enlargement and then doubled my count or trebled my count, depending on the scale factor. When we're using a negative scale factor, the method is different. I'm going to start at the corner, count my way to the center of enlargement. I'm going to remain where I am, and then I'm going to apply my scale factor. So if I talk us through this first point here. To get from here to my center of enlargement, I go 1 along and 1, 2 down. This time I'm going to remain where I am at the center of enlargement, and I'm going to double those dimensions. The reason I'm doubling them is because I'm dealing with a -2 scale factor. So I'm now going to go 2 along and 4 down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I land on that safety net of the red line. I'm going to do that for all 4 corners. So I'm going to take this corner, and I'm going to start at the corner and count towards the center of enlargement. 1, 2, 3 along, and 1, 2 down. So now I'm going to stay where I am, and I'm going to go 6 along and 4 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's where I'm going to land on the red line. You may have noticed that the red and yellow corners were on the top of the shape, but now they are going to be on the bottom of our enlarged shape. That is very typical of a negative enlargement. The shape appears to be rotated through the center of enlargement. It hasn't been rotated That is just the appearance that the negative scale factor gives. Let me finish off counting these squares. Okay, so from here to the center of enlargement, 1 along, 1 down, stay where I am. 2 along, 2 down, land on the red line. We can probably guess where our last one's going to go, but I'm going to work it out anyway. Okay, so I'm going to start here. 3 along, 1 down, stay where I am, double those distances. So I'm going to go 6 along and 2 down. Again, all 4 of my new corners land on the red line. So that safety net is really helping me be confident with my answer. If I draw in my shape, looks something like that. And then if I add a little bit of shading, it would look like that. So let's have a look at the properties of my answer. First of all, it was a -2 scale factor. So the 2 would indicate that the shape is twice as big, which it is. We've got a length of 2 here, and now that length has been doubled to a length of 4. We have a length of 1 here, and that length has been doubled to a length of 2. So just like in a positive enlargement, the shape we are finished with, the image we end up with, is twice as big as the image we started with. What the negative does to the enlargement is that it makes it come out the other side of the center of enlargement. So our original shape started here, our center of enlargement was here, but our image, our answer, is at the other side of the center of enlargement. That is different to if it was a positive enlargement, positive scale factor question. To have a look at the other sort of typical property, I'm going to go back to the last slide, because here if we look at the colors, the purple and blue corners, which were on the bottom of the rectangle up here, they've now sort of been twisted and rotated, and they end up on the top of the rectangle down here. The yellow and the green started on the top, they've been twisted through the center of enlargement, and they've ended up on the bottom down here. So just 2 properties to be aware of when we end up with our final solution from a negative scale factor enlargement. Okay, here's another question. You may want to pause the video at this point and have a go at this question yourself, or if you would like another example, I'm going to talk through this example. Because we now have a triangle, it should be a lot easier to visualize the rotation or the twisting that appears to take place as we do the enlargement. We're dealing with a -3 scale factor from a center of enlargement of 1, 2. So first of all, I find the coordinate 1, 2, and I put my black dot for my center of enlargement. Then I'm going to add on my straight lines from the shape towards the center of enlargement and continue them on. From the shape towards the center of enlargement and continue them on. So once I've applied my ruler, it should look something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to start counting squares. Remember, we were dealing with a -3 scale factor. So from this corner, I'm going to count to the center of enlargement, then I'm going to treble my count, treble my distances. 1 along, 2 down, stay where I am. So I'm now going to go 3 along and 6 down. So I land on the red line. Notice that that red line is connecting the 2 yellow dots. So this originally was the top of the triangle, but the triangle has come through the center of enlargement. It appears to be rotated, and this yellow dot is now going to be at the bottom of the new triangle. Okay, if I take this corner here, to get to the center of enlargement, I'm going to go 2 along, 1 down. So I'm going to times those distances by 3, and I'm going to go 6 along, 3 down, and again, I land on my safety net of the red line. I'm going to finish with my last one there. To get from here, I go 1 along, 1 down, stay where I am, 3 along and 3 down to land on this point here. Now I'm just going to draw in my shape. And you can see it ends up 3 times the size of the original shape. If I add a little bit of shading to that shape, it will look like so. So if we have a look at the lengths, this length here was 1 along, and now this length here is 3 along. So the linear scale factor is 3. Each length of the shape is 3 times bigger. We have a height here of 1. The height of the shape here is now 3. If I go back to the previous slide and have a little look at that twisting motion, that rotation motion, you can see that the yellow corner started on the top of the triangle. It passed through the center of enlargement, appeared to be twisted, and it ends up on the bottom of our resulting image, of our enlarged shape. The blue and green corners were originally on the base of the triangle. As they're taken through the center of enlargement, they are now on the top of our resulting image. So just a very clear property there and an easy visual representation that when you're enlarging by a negative scale factor, your original shape appears to be twisted and rotated throughout the center of enlargement. Of course, it also comes out the other side of the center of enlargement, and as expected with an enlargement question, the scale factor was -3, so our final shape is 3 times the size of the initial shape that we started with. Okay, so now it's your turn to have a go at a few questions. We have moved from 4 quadrants down to 1 quadrant. However, the method and the way you answer the question remains the same. For each question, I've given you the 2 bits of important information. I've given you the scale factor, and I've also given you the center of enlargement. I would like you to copy out each axis and copy out each question, and then carry out the enlargement. Could you please pause the video at this point, and then I will show you my solutions when you unpause the video. Okay, welcome back. I'll go ahead and show you my solutions. So the enlargements you should have in front of you should look something like this. So you can see that for each question, I've applied the straight lines, that safety net. Remember, if you watch some other tutorials, those lines may not be included, or as your confidence grows with the topic, you may not need them, but my advice is always the same. If you add them to your enlargement, it's going to build your confidence and you're going to be more confident that your answer is correct. You can see my results for each enlargement. You can see with the triangles that twisting motion, that rotation that appears to happen is a lot more easily visible in the triangular questions rather than the square question down here, and that's just down to the symmetrical properties of the original shape of the square. Very well done if your answers look like this. Here's another question for you to have a go at. Again, at this point, you have the ability to pause the video. Could you copy and complete the question, and then we can match it up with my solution when you unpause the video. Okay, welcome back. Again, we're back to working on 4 quadrants rather than just 1, but the method doesn't really change. Your solution should look something like this. Very well done. Another question for you to have a go at. Could you pause the video at this point, copy and complete the question? Okay, welcome back. Your solution should look something like this. This time we are dealing with a scale factor of -3. So the shape is 3 times the size. Because of the negative, the original shape comes out the other side of the center of enlargement. Okay, now we're just going to make the questions a little bit more tricky. The reason things are slightly trickier is that the center of enlargement now is inside the shape. I'm going to talk you through this first question, and then there'll be one for you to have a go at as a challenge question. So the method is exactly the same. It's just visualizing where things are going that can become a little bit difficult with questions like this. So I'm going to enlarge this shape by scale factor of -2 with the center of enlargement at 2, 1. So I'm going to find the center of enlargement, 2 along and 1 up. So my center of enlargement is marked on the question here. Then I'm going to draw in my straight lines, just as I would, or just as I have been doing on the previous questions. I'm going to start from my shape towards the center of enlargement and then continue them on. From my shape towards the center of enlargement and continue on. From my shape towards the center of enlargement and continue. From my shape towards the center of enlargement and continue on. So our shape is going to look something like that. So straight away it becomes quite difficult to visualize, maybe a little bit trickier to visualize, but the method we're doing is exactly what we've been doing at the beginning of the video. Okay, so now I'm going to use my colors to highlight the corners. I'll start with this corner here. From here, I'm going to count to the center of enlargement, and then because I'm using a scale factor of -2, I'm going to double the count to find my new placement for the yellow corner. So I'm going to go 2 along, 1 down, stay where I am, and then I'm going to go 4 along, 2 down. So this is my new point for this corner. Just change the color here. So notice that the method I'm doing is exactly what we've been doing at the beginning of the video. It's just the visualizing where things are going to go that becomes a little bit more complex. From this corner to the center of enlargement, 1 along, 1 down, stay where I am and double the count, 2 along, 2 down. It's going to end up this point here. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the next point, which is this one here. To get to the center of enlargement, 1 up and 0 along. So I'm going to go 2 up and 0 along. It's going to end up there. And finally, the last corner is this one here. To get from here to the center of enlargement, we're going to go 1 up, 1 along. So I'm now going to go 2 up, 2 along. There we go. Then I'm going to take my ruler and join up my new shape from here to here, here to here, purple to blue, and blue back down to yellow. So what you'll find there is we have enlarged the shape by scale factor 2, so it is twice the size of the original shape. It still has that property of appearing to be rotated, but it also lands on top of the original shape. So if we look at it on the next slide, it looks a little bit clearer. You can see my original shape here, and my enlarged shape is twice as big, appears to be twisted and rotated, and lands on top of the original shape. Okay. So I now have a question like that for you to attempt as a challenge question. Okay, so I'd like you to copy out the 4 quadrant axes. We are going from -4 up to 5 and -5 along to 5. Okay, the instructions are at the top here. I would like you to read the instructions, follow what the instructions are asking you to do and see if you can fully complete the enlargement. Would you pause the video now? Okay, welcome back. So in this question, we were given 3 coordinates, so we needed to actually draw the triangle out. Then we needed to use the triangle that we had just produced from the coordinates and enlarge it by a scale factor -2 with a center of enlargement at the origin 0, 0. Your final enlargement should look something like this. So you can see where I drew my original shape. I've highlighted it very slightly in green there. So that was my original shape, which I plotted using these 3 coordinates. Then I found my center of enlargement at 0, 0 at the origin here. I drew on my lines from the shape towards the center of enlargement and continued them on. Then I started counting squares, and for each count I was doubling the distance because I was dealing with a scale factor of -2. And the resultant enlargement ended up on top of the original shape because the center of enlargement was in the center of the original shape we had started with. Very well done if you were able to answer that complex enlargement question. That shows a great understanding of enlarging with negative scale factors.